and getting upset and angry and not accepting apologies doesn't bring my child back. What happened has happened. I need to look at the recommendations and hope that they are enacted and Martyn's Law comes in.
This inquiry has found major shortcomings in the response to the attack on Manchester Arena. What is your response to what the inquiry has found?
Well, yeah, obviously, when we got to court yesterday, the volume was rather large. It was over 500 pages. So it just shows that the emergency services have an enormous task on their hand to deal with all the recommendations, but they're really important. Yeah.
Do you accept the apologies that have come from the heads of all the emergency services, actually?
Yes, I do. And I know some of the other families may not. But for me, what is really important, I tend to look forward and, getting upset and angry and not accepting apologies doesn't bring my child back. What happened has happened. I need to look at the recommendations and hope that they are enacted and Martyn's Law comes in. So that this doesn't happen in future and people are kept safer.
What do you, when you say that this doesn't happen in future, what do you think of the finding as well that the failings were actually errors that had been made in response to the 7/7 bombings in London in 2005 and recommendations that were not implemented after that atrocity? How do you reflect on that?
Well, do you know what? Inquiries happen all the time, and there's always recommendations, and some of them are followed and some aren't. But obviously, in this case, Judge Saunders has made it clear that he will be following the recommendations up to make sure that they've actually been enacted, and I hope he will do that with Martyn's Law as well.
Have you found, you accept the apology of the emergency services, which is remarkable to hear, and I just wonder if that means that you found the inquiry in some way helpful, that it has helped you in the aftermath of what happened?
Well, yeah, of course it's helpful because you identify what things went wrong. And yes, there's been a catalogue of errors, but that's exactly why we have inquiries, to find out what went wrong. The key thing is that actually in future, this sort of thing can be avoided. I'm wondering whether had Martyn's Law already existed, the attack would have happened in the first place because there would have been much heightened security. Martyn's Law in itself, if there was an attack that could not be avoided, would actually ensure that people deal with the consequences of an attack in a more efficient way. That includes, of course, the emergency services in a massive way. But also, Judge Saunders yesterday talked in his report about trauma kits being made widely available at publicly accessible locations, and he wants it rolled out in schools and etc. But what is important is that places, locations, like he said, ought to implement Martyn's Law so that actually stricter safety measures are there in the first place. And whilst that applies to large venues already know what to do. It's the smaller venues that really need to get their head around Martyn's Law and know how to deal with a terrorist attack if it was to happen.
Yeah.
And they know where to evacuate their customers and staff.
It's important that you say that, and you've mentioned some of the sort of specifics of Martyn's Law. I think one of the things in here was the feeling among the emergency services that this won't happen to us in terms of not implementing the recommendations after the 7/7 bombings. What else about Martyn's Law has Sir John Saunders called for? Is he kind of picking up some of what you have been campaigning for, and do you feel like there is still more work to do?
Well, there is more work to do because obviously Martyn's Law means that people need to have. I mean, he did mention training in general, that staff in the emergency services need to be better trained. He mentioned police officers need to be trained in life-saving first aid skills. So, but Martyn's Law goes beyond that. It actually means that people, the general public even, can access on the Protect UK app free 45-minute counter-terrorism training, it is sort of really, I've done it myself, it's really, really good.
Mm.
It helps you understand what to do in a terrorist attack. And if staff at small venues have that skill, that they just simply know what to do in a terrorist attack. And that is knowledge that is so immeasurably important.
Figen, it's so good to speak to you this morning. I'm so struck by how, I suppose, how composed you are, if that's not patronising or whatever to say. It's so amazing to hear how you feel in the aftermath of all of this. Are you in touch regularly with other family members? Do you still kind of support each other at moments like this? You mentioned that while you accept the apology of the emergency services, other families of victims may not.
Mhm. We're not very much in touch simply because you need to remember that the concert was visited by
Mm.
a wide variety of people from all across the UK. So geographically, we are all very far apart. And actually, to be honest, my time is very much taken up with Martyn's Law and my talks at school. So I have really, it's turned into a full-time job.
Yeah.
So I'm focusing on that.